Hello and welcome back to Origami Snowman. I'm Matt. A couple days ago, wow, the one place I didn't want to be. A couple days, this isn't gonna go well. I'm pretty sure we're just this video is just gonna be me trying to get out of here. A couple days ago, I posted a video talking about the many books of Brandon Sanderson. And I won't say it was viewed a lot, just that it was viewed a lot compared to some of my other videos. And that makes me very oh, come on. Makes me very happy. Let's try just to go crazy. That didn't work either. That makes me very happy because I love Brandon Sanderson. And it seems to me that some of y'all do too. And that's terrific. I love finding community. So I am slowly making my way through Words of Radiance, which is the second book in the Stormlight archive. I'm loving it. I absolutely love it. It is a humongous book. If you asked what it's about, I could tell you, but not briefly. There's no way to sum up. There are ways. I hate using absolutes. I never use absolutes. I'm sure someone could sum it up, but not I. Matt can't do it. Pardon me. But it's high fantasy, very high fantasy. If you want to read a book that you have to get involved in, Stormlight is good stuff. But I want to talk about his other real popular series, Mistborn. Oh boy. Mistborn is great. Mistborn is great. Most books, it takes a minute. It takes a minute to get into it, to get hooked. Not Mistborn. If you will know within 5 pages whether or not this is your type of book. You'll have loads of questions, but Brandon Sanderson makes you want to be patient with the story. Does that make sense? I've read a lot of books where I'm like, I gotta get to the answers. And then I read through it so fast that I miss a lot of details. But for some reason, with Brandon Sanderson's, I just killed that hole in one. Way to go. With Brando Sando, you're willing to kind of just say, okay, you know what? You're my tour guide. Take your time. Show me what I need to know. I'm not in a rush. I love it. It's great. Mistborn, I knew right away. I was like, oh, this is great. He's putting some questions in my head and letting me just sort of sit with them for a little while. And it's so much fun. So I want to talk about some of the characters. If you've never read Mistborn, you would do well to watch one of my other videos. I just posted one about Rancid, one of my favorite bands of all time. Go watch that one. They're great. But if you've never read Mistborn, I'm probably going to spoil a few things. So be warned. So I'm really only primarily focusing on the first era, the first 3 books. He's been writing them like crazy, and there's lots of books. So I'm not going to talk too much about Wax and Wayne. I might talk about how some of these characters are referred to in the Wax and Wayne series, but I'm going to focus primarily on just the Mistborn series. And maybe, more than likely, I will reference The Secret History, the little short novella thing that he wrote. So, the characters in Mistborn that I want to talk about. I want to talk about, the crew. You know who the crew is. It's Kelsier and Vin. It's Dox. It's Breeze. Hammond. Who's the crotchety old man? Spook's uncle. I can't remember his name because I never really liked him all that much. Club. Yeah. The crew. I loved how they pointed out, hey, these are different characters. They have different abilities, and even within this wider world, we do tend to sort these enhanced individuals by their ability. But in this crew, with all different abilities, we are equals, except for Kelsier and Vin, because they could do it all. So Kelsier and Vin, being Mistborn, they have all the abilities and they can do all the things. Kelsier, he was a neat character, but I did not particularly find him admirable. I don't know. That might be a little controversial to say, because he was awesome. He was great. Yeah, I loved him to death, but I didn't, I never felt like he was going to be the one to save the day. So at the end of the first book, when that big thing happens at the end of the first book, the thing that made my daughter cry in study hall while all the preppy kids were, having social time and she was nerding out over in the corner with her book. That scene, the scene. So when that happened, I was surprised for the narrative, but not for the plot, because I knew that he wasn't going to be the one to, in the end, be the hero. So I was surprised that they took him out as early as they did in the trilogy. Spoiler alert, yes, he doesn't make it. Sorry. I tried to kind of dance around it and then forgot I was dancing around it. I'm great. That wasn't surprising to me. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't feel the loss as keenly as I could have. Like when Gandalf falls into the depths, I felt that. When Dumbledore, falls from the tower, I felt that. This one, not so much, because I didn't see him. I was actually worried, because of the way, like the hero worship that was going on around him. I was concerned that he would actually become a problem. So seeing him die, spoiler, sorry, seeing him not, make it to the end of the book, I was kind of relieved. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain, blah, 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 blah. And I was glad that he died a hero. So, not my top hero, okay? Vin, I loved Vin. I thought her story was terrific. I like how long she dealt with her feelings of inadequacy. I really appreciated that, because so many times in books, your character is like, oh, I'm nothing. Oh, now I have this ability. Well, now I'm something. No, that's not how it works. Feelings of inadequacy, foundational trauma, like to your self-worth, that doesn't go away just because you acquire a skill, or, imposter syndrome is very real. And the fact that Brandon Sanderson allowed Vin to live with that for so much of the series, I really appreciated that. It felt very correct. She was defeating enemies, but she couldn't get over her own inadequacy. I just thought that was great. But she was a terrific character. Elendil, no. Elendil is the city that they name after Elend. It doesn't matter. Okay, so Elend. Yeah, Elend Venture. I liked him too, because he also, he didn't have these same, I don't know, his inadequacy didn't define him the way that Vin's inadequacies seemed to haunt her. He didn't feel like he was up to the task, but he also knew that nobody else was either. And he'd rather make the mistakes than allow someone else to make the mistakes. And he was willing to make the mistakes. He was willing to be wrong. Unfortunately, other people weren't willing to give him a second chance, and so he had to kind of, be a little bit hard on himself. I liked him too. There were some problematic issues with how quickly he adapted to the changes that came over him at the end of book 2. Because we started in book 3 and all of a sudden he's like, oh, who taught you that? But whatever, it's fine. I also, I like how he never felt threatened by Vin. He even a nice normal guy in real life would be like, yeah, I don't know, I gotta find my place. I gotta, yeah, she's real good at all this ninja stuff, but I'm still better at her in this way or whatever, so I can still be the man. He didn't ever really act like that. Yeah, he wanted to be able to protect himself because he didn't want to be her responsibility, but he was not threatened, and that's cool. That's a great example. It just didn't seem very realistic, mostly because I know too many men, and men are fragile creatures. We sure are. So I liked Elend Venture. He wasn't really part of the crew, though, so I wasn't going to talk about him, but I did anyway. Breeze. Everybody loves Breeze. He's charming and manipulative. He reminds me of I cannot remember the actor's name. He's in What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, not the movie. I've seen the movie. I haven't seen the series. But that actor who plays the heavier set vampire, I want to say his name is Matthew. I don't know. He was also in the IT Crowd, and he's hilarious. He's so funny. He's got this sort of grandiose bearing, even though he's clearly an idiot, And I pictured him in the role of Breeze, and just very self-satisfied, very smug. I really like that character because he's very powerful, but also pretty harmless. And you always knew, no matter what happened, Breeze was gonna do the right thing. He was not gonna leave the crew to fend for themselves. If he could help, he was gonna do it. He was sticking around. And then he ended up with that princess, and I don't remember these characters' names, and it's killing me. But when he infiltrated the king's entourage and then escaped, and then the king's daughter tracked him down, and then he's just sort of stuck with her, and that was an astonishing hole-in-one. I kind of want to relive that. I'll just have to watch it over and over and over again in editing. But that was a great, man, I'm having a great game here. So Breeze was great. I loved Breeze. And his relationship with Club, right? Or is it Club or Clubs? I don't remember. I could look. The book is literally 3 feet behind me, but I don't feel like turning around and I didn't give enough attention to the game. His relationship with Club or Clubs, right at the end, where they kind of had this mutual respect for each other, even though Club didn't like him. He didn't like having his emotions manipulated. He didn't like what Breeze did. He was very against it, morally opposed. But he was able to look past that and say, yeah, you know what, Breeze? I don't like you, but I respect you. And they formed a very realistic relationship, because there are a lot of people in my life who I don't like, but I respect. And then there are, inversely, a lot of people who I like but don't respect. It's a weird separation, but it's there. There's a distinction. So we talked about Breeze, Club or whatever his name is. I'm going to be honest, he was a little forgettable, and I think he was kind of written to be that way. His very nature to hide the Allomancers, to hide the metal users, makes him forgettable. That was his whole job, was to hide and to stay hidden. And, maybe that was done by design. Brandon Sanderson's. If you did it, congratulations. That was a brilliant move. But as a writer, I know that sometimes those little moments that people applaud for being brilliant, you're just like, huh, I guess that is how that worked. I didn't see that coming. Okay, great. Yep. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, Hammond. I liked Hammond because he's what's known as a thug, right? He's just a big old muscly man. But he's so much more than that. And it would be real easy for him to just say, listen, I'm going to train my guys. I'm going to go, I'll punch the doors down. I'll fight the soldiers. I'll do the stuff. But that's, that's really all I'm going to do. But he didn't. He took on a much larger role. And when you consider the fact that he has a wife and a family hidden away somewhere, he shouldn't be taking these risks, but he's doing it because he believes in the cause. That's admirable. I like that. It's a very Hawkeye kind of thing. So Hammond, I liked Hammond. I thought he was a good guy. He was as multifaceted as a character like that could be. Then there was Doxson, who was not an Allomancer. He couldn't burn metals. He didn't have any special abilities, except for the gift of administration, which is a spiritual gift, but extremely valuable. You ask my wife how we get by. We get by with her organizational skills. That's how we get by. So my wife is she's a very organized person. She's a Doxson. That's totally what she is. And she's very good at keeping track of things. And it's what she's best at. She doesn't always enjoy that the responsibility falls to her. And it does seem unfair. But let me just explain this real quick. If I was capable of managing our household even a tenth as well as she is, I would gladly take over some of that responsibility. But were I to actually do that, we would suffer for my ignorance, because I don't think it's right that she should have to do all this stuff. But I just can't. Like, I forget everything. Let me just say this. My bus route. I drive the exact same route every single day. I pick up the exact same kids. I stop at the exact same places every single day. Earlier this week, I flew right past a kid's stop. I have been stopping at that kid's house forever. But that day, it just was like, there are holes in my brain, and important things slip through. And I don't think it's a good idea to roll the dice on something like our finances. So, sorry, my wife has to kind of do all that stuff. And she knows that I'm bad at it. And so even if I did it, she would double check to make sure it was done right. And what is the point in both of us doing the same job, really? So she's a dachshund. That's what dachshund does. He manages he organizes everything. Well, no, he doesn't organize it. He keeps it organized. He doesn't do a lot of the planning. He just makes sure everything is, documented, and the things happen when they're supposed to, and all that stuff. He's invaluable, but also not a ton of personality. He's sort of Kelsier's right-hand man. He's his number one guy, but not, super fun. Oh my goodness. And then Spook, Lord Lesterborn. He's easy to overlook in the first book mostly because of his strange speech pattern. He's got that street slang that he speaks in that, I'm going to be honest, I didn't like. It was kind of annoying. But everyone else in the book felt the same way. So it felt nice to have that addressed. And did we have a little deja vu here? So Spook at first was kind of this annoying, obnoxious little boy. And to be honest, he felt like he was going to be a liability because I'm going to say he felt a little bit like an incel. I'm sorry, he did. He felt like, whoa, why doesn't anyone like me as much? Why am I, not as exciting or as interesting or as important as everyone else? He was, he had a crush on Vin, and it was not reciprocated. Like, she didn't feel the same way about him. And he, you got the sense that he was going to be a little bit bitter about it and maybe let his feelings cause him to make some bad decisions. And there were a few moments where that very nearly happened. But he threw himself into his work and into the cause in such a way that he became very quickly my favorite character. He was the most interesting. And I really enjoyed reading his arc, and I enjoyed everything that happened with him. I thought it was terrific. I think the story unfolded, like the ins and outs, the nature of the world they lived in, and the three types of magic, the allomancy, the ferrochemy, and the hemalurgy. Those all three, I think I understood those better because of what Spook went through than when anyone else tried to explain what was happening. It was yeah. So Spook was great. Spook was a brilliant turn of focus in that, especially in that third book. Now, if you read The Secret History, it's a very short book, very quick read. It deals with Kelsier after his encounter with the Lord Ruler. He encounters the Lord Ruler, and then he finds that he is still alert and still aware, but is being drawn into sort of the afterlife. He doesn't want to be, so he fights against it. He speaks with Preservation. He talks to the character Preservation, and they have this back and forth where they he argues, and he's like, I'm not ready to go. I don't want to go. Great hole in one, Matt. Thanks. High five. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll give myself a high five later. He basically refuses to go, and Preservation finally is like, you know what? Fine, you can stay, and he leaves Kelsier at the Well of Ascension. He's trapped there, much in the same way that Ruin is trapped. And so there's nothing to mark the passing of time, and he's starting to go crazy. He's just, oh my word, he's so like, just he's listless. Oh, that could have been great. And at one point, somebody shows up and is very smarmy with him, very sarcastic. And if you're familiar with the Cosmere, which is the Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn universe, then you'll know who Hoyd is. And this character is Hoyd, although he goes by a different name, and I cannot remember what that name is. But it's Hoyd, who we see. Oh my gosh, we see in Mistborn. Except he in not Mistborn. Stormlight. In Stormlight Archives, he goes by the name Wit, although he does introduce himself to Kaladin as Hoyd. But he also, hang on, in Mistborn Second Era, we see him very briefly as Louise, as Waxilium's carriage driver, his chauffeur, and now as far as I know, because I've only read 2 books of that, but Hoyd is this character who I don't know a lot about him. I'm sure other people know plenty about him and could school me upside down. But he's sort of this otherworldly character who seems to know an awful lot about what's going on everywhere, but isn't particularly helpful, except when he has no other choice. He's very quick-witted, very sharp-tongued. He's a great character. I like him a lot, and I hope very much to see him do some really interesting things. So that'll be fun. But so Kelsier meets Hoyd and doesn't like him, and then he watches as Vin releases the power that is kept in the Well of Ascension. Instead of using it, she releases it, which releases ruin, and not inversely, but also releases Kelsier. So he's able to move around the world. And he goes and he sees and he finds some things and he does some things, and he's instrumental in a lot of the latter part of the 3rd book. And in fact, there's a thing that happens at the end of the 3rd book, which I didn't feel like it was expressed very clearly. It wasn't stated explicitly, and maybe I just skipped over it. Maybe I was doing that thing I said I didn't do, and I read too quickly just to get to the end. Maybe I missed it. But and now I'm going to say a name that I'm sure I'm saying wrong, but you'll know who I'm talking about if you've read Mistborn. Sazed. I'm sure there's some pronunciation guide that I didn't read, but Kelsier asks Saz to make Spook a Mistborn. And Spook becomes sort of like the king of everyone, as the world is remade and the people are, I don't know how I'm going to make this. I'm going to have to hit it dead on. Oh, no, I'm not. It bounced back. Okay, I was looking on. Okay, we almost had a funny tragedy there. Okay. And so they refer to him in the Wax and Wayne series, historically speaking, they refer to him as the Lord Mistborn. I didn't know who that was because I didn't realize that he'd been made a Mistborn. I thought they were talking at first about Kelsier and then about Elend. But no, they're talking about Spook, which, that's awesome. Makes me happy. And so, so in the Secret History, Kelsier and all that stuff, we get to see a lot of, he's there. He witnesses the whole thing. He just can't do much to help. But he sees all this stuff happen, and he's so desperately proud of Vin and even of Elend, who he didn't even like, and of like his little battered crew. He's so proud of them, and I love that. And then in Wax and Wayne, we get to hear, there's all sorts of little nods to the characters in the naming of places around Elendil. Hang on. I'm fine. I'm really fine. I'm doing better, but I'm still coughing a bit. So, there's I think Tindwyl gets something named after her, and Hammond has something named after him, and there's all this just nods to these characters, and that's really fun. But I think one of the most interesting things that they sort of sneak in, and it's very subtle, is that Waxilium is a direct descendant of Breeze, and I thought that was really cool. He doesn't share Breeze's ability. Wax has very different abilities, but whatever, it's fine. So, yeah, I just felt like talking about characters from Mistborn. So that's what this video was. There are, if you haven't read Mistborn and you've watched the video this far, there's a lot of things that happen. And I'm sorry to spoil them for you, but for crying out loud, I told you to turn off the video and you didn't. So that's on you. But read Mistborn. They're so, so good. It will open up a whole world for you. It's really fascinating. And there are all of these little ways that these books that take place on different planets, but within the same universe, they lean on each other in different ways. We learn about shards. The shards exist in the Mistborn universe. Hoyd travels back and forth. There's just a lot of things that exist in both worlds, on both planets, and definitely I love that kind of thing, because it's not, if you read Stormlight, you don't have to read Mistborn, and if you read Mistborn, you don't have to read Stormlight. But if you read them both, you'll be rewarded. There are little treasures that you're going to find that, that'll make you go, oh, I know what that is. I'm so happy I did the thing. And you'll say it in that same high-pitched voice. And you will not be embarrassed, because you will not be making a video about it. Oh, for crying out loud. I got to stop this thing where I try to end on a hole-in-one. It's really running up the view, the runtime on my videos. Maybe? Nope. Maybe? Nope. I lied to myself. I let myself get excited, and it fell flat. So, yeah, they keep talking about a Mistborn movie coming out, and I don't even know how I feel about that. I'm very glad that I read it before they did make it into a movie, if it does become a movie, but I don't know. I don't know. Again, I think that funny, larger, heavier set vampire guy would be the perfect Breeze. Hole-in-one. The universe agrees. You, I'm sure, agree. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Read Mistborn. Tell me what you think. All right, I will talk to you guys in the next one. Goodbye.